Welcome to a deep dive into the world of mindsets. We're using Carol Dweck's Mindset, the new psychology of success, as our guide today. Get ready to discover how even small shifts in thinking can lead to big changes in your actions and outcomes.
It all starts with understanding that people tend to have either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset.
Okay, so fixed versus growth. Break that down for me a little bit. What's the difference?
Well, with a fixed mindset, you believe your talents are basically inborn, static. You either have them or you don't. But with a growth mindset, you believe that your abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work.
Oh, I see. So like if you were given a challenging math problem, a fixed mindset might lead to think, ooh, I'm just not a math person.
Right. While a growth mindset would see it as a chance to learn and grow, they'd be like, okay, I can figure this out with some effort and practice.
Yeah. That makes me think about how praise can sometimes actually reinforce a fixed mindset, especially when it focuses on like innate talent, saying, you're so smart instead of, wow, look at how much effort you put into that.
Absolutely. And praising effort is really key because Dweck's research shows that it can be a lot more motivating than praising intelligence, leading to, greater resilience when people face challenges.
That's so interesting. I remember growing up being told I was smart all the time. And looking back, I wonder if that actually made me avoid situations where I might, not look so smart anymore.
Yeah, that's a pretty common side effect of the fixed mindset. When you're always praised for being smart, you start to equate your worth with performance. And that fear of failure becomes a real barrier to taking risks and trying new things.
Makes sense. So maybe instead of saying you're so smart, a better approach would be to say something like, hey, I see how much you've learned.
Exactly. That shift in emphasis from innate talent to effort and strategy can really nurture a growth mindset.
Okay, so let's talk about failure for a second.
Yeah.
How do you think a fixed mindset views failure compared to a growth mindset?
Well, in a fixed mindset, failure is seen as like a measure of your ability, proof that you're not good enough. Right. But with a growth mindset, failure is just feedback, an opportunity to learn, adjust, and try again.
So it's not a judgment on your worth as a person.
Right. Think about Michael Jordan for a second.
Ah, the legend. I mean, he was born with that incredible basketball talent.
Well, natural talent definitely played a role. But what truly set Jordan apart was his, relentless pursuit of improvement. He wasn't afraid to miss shots or to experiment with new techniques or push himself beyond his comfort zone.
So even someone considered the greatest basketball player of all time, he wasn't afraid to fail.
Yeah. He used those failures to learn and get better. Think about it. How would he have perfected that fadeaway jump shot, one of the most difficult shots in basketball, if he hadn't been willing to miss thousands of times in practice?
Wow, when you put it that way, it really changes your perspective. This makes me think about those overnight successes we see in business or entertainment. They might seem like they just appear out of nowhere, but I bet you anything there were years of hard work and failures behind the scenes.
You're absolutely right. And you see this same dynamic play out in the business world as well. Dweck contrasts the leadership styles of Lee Iacocca at Chrysler and Lou Gerstner at IBM, both CEOs who faced, very different challenges.
Okay, so Iacocca, the guy who saved Chrysler from collapse, that was a true American success story. And then you have Gerstner, who led IBM through a major turnaround, both pretty impressive. How do their mindsets come into play here?
Well, Iacocca was initially known for his bold decision-making, but later he kind of fell into a fixed mindset trap. He became more concerned with maintaining his image and seeking approval than fostering growth and innovation within Chrysler.
So instead of seeking continuous improvement, it became more about protecting his legacy?
Exactly. But Gerstner, on the other hand, came into IBM and faced a really deeply ingrained fixed mindset culture. And he actively challenged that. He broke down hierarchies, emphasized teamwork, actively sought input from employees at all levels.
Wow. So he wasn't afraid to admit that he didn't have all the answers and that everyone could learn from each other.
Right. And that shift towards a more collaborative, learning-oriented culture ultimately led to IBM's resurgence.
That's a powerful example of how a growth mindset can transform not just individual performance, but entire organizations. So we've seen how mindsets play out in achievement and leadership. What about in our personal lives?
Well, a fixed mindset can really wreak havoc in relationships.
Really? I usually think of mindsets in terms of individual achievement, not so much relationships.
Think about it this way. In a relationship with a fixed mindset, partners are terrified of vulnerability. Any mistake becomes evidence of a flaw. It leads to blame and defensiveness instead of growth.
So instead of seeing their partner as someone they can learn and grow with, they see them as someone they need to be perfect for.
Right. And that's just way too much pressure on any relationship. But a growth mindset fosters open communication, mutual support. Partners view each other as works in progress, capable of change and development.
Okay, so let's say we want to move away from that fixed mindset and really embrace a growth mindset. Where do we even begin? Is it as simple as just deciding to change our thinking?
Well, it's not quite that simple,
Mm-hmm.
but it does start with awareness.
Okay, so we're back and talking about becoming aware of those fixed mindset patterns. But it's one thing to recognize them and quite another to actually shift our thinking.
Hmm.
How do we go from, oh, I see that fixed mindset pattern to, okay, I'm going to change that?
Well, one thing Dweck suggests is paying attention to your self-talk, that little voice in your head. You know, the one that's saying, you're not good at this, or what's the point of even trying?
Oh, yeah, I know that voice.
That's the fixed mindset whispering in your ear.
So let's say I'm working on a presentation for work, and that little voice pops up and says, oh, you're going to mess this up. You're not a good public speaker. What do I do then? Well, instead of just letting that thought take over, you can try reframing it. Like, ask yourself, what evidence do I actually have for that belief? What can I learn from this presentation, even if it doesn't go perfectly? How can I use this as an opportunity to grow my public speaking skills?
So it's about challenging those negative thoughts and kind of replacing them with a more positive, growth-oriented perspective.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to seek out challenges that push you beyond your comfort zone. Remember, growth happens when we stretch ourselves.
Okay, that makes sense for learning new skills or taking on new responsibilities at work. But what about in our personal lives? How does a growth mindset play out in our relationships with friends and family?
It means viewing your loved ones as individuals who are also on their own journeys of growth and development. Understanding that everyone makes mistakes and that those mistakes don't define who they are.
So instead of judging or criticizing, we approach those situations with empathy and a willingness to support their growth. Yeah, it's about seeing your relationships as opportunities for mutual learning and support, where you can encourage each other to become like the best versions of yourselves.
You know, that reminds me of something you mentioned earlier, about the impact of role models. How can we surround ourselves with people who embody a growth mindset?
It starts with being mindful of the people you spend the most time with. Do they inspire you to grow and learn? Do they support your efforts to improve? Do they view challenges as opportunities?
Yeah, so it's about surrounding yourself with people who lift you up and encourage you to become better, rather than those who hold you back with negativity or a fixed mindset.
Right. And remember, role models don't have to be famous or extraordinary. They can be friends, family members, mentors, or even colleagues who just demonstrate a growth mindset in their daily lives.
This is all really inspiring, but I have to admit it sounds like a lot of work. Changing deeply ingrained thought patterns and behaviors doesn't happen overnight.
You're absolutely right. It's an ongoing process that requires conscious effort and practice. It's like training a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Okay, so how do we build that growth mindset muscle? What are some practical steps we can take?
One effective approach is to set realistic goals and break them down into smaller, more manageable steps. That way, you're not overwhelmed by the enormity of the challenge, and you can celebrate your progress along the way.
So instead of focusing on the end goal, we break it down into smaller milestones and acknowledge our achievements as we move forward.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to experiment and try new things.
Yeah.
Remember, failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the process.
This brings me back to something you mentioned earlier about how praising effort can be more motivating than praising intelligence. Could this be applied to how we talk to children?
Absolutely. One of the most impactful things parents and educators can do is foster a growth mindset in children from an early age. Create an environment where effort, learning, and resilience are valued more than just outcomes or accolades.
So instead of saying, you're so smart, we might say, wow, you really worked hard on that project.
Yes. And when a child faces a setback, instead of saying, don't worry, you're still smart, you can say, what did you learn from this experience? How can you use this to improve next time?
So we're essentially shifting the focus from innate ability to effort, strategy, and learning from mistakes.
And by doing so, we're helping children develop the skills and mindset they need to navigate the inevitable challenges they'll encounter throughout their lives.
This is so crucial because the messages we receive in our childhood, they can have a lasting impact on our beliefs and behaviors. I can definitely see how fostering a growth mindset in children can help them develop a love of learning and a belief in their own ability to grow and achieve their goals.
You know what's fascinating is that this approach to parenting, it doesn't just benefit children, it can also help parents develop a stronger growth mindset themselves.
Oh, that's interesting. How
Look,
so?
well, think about it. When we focus on praising our children's effort, strategies, and resilience, we're essentially modeling those same qualities for them. We're showing them that we, as adults, also value growth, learning, and the process of overcoming challenges.
It's like we're all on this learning journey together, supporting and encouraging each other to embrace challenges and celebrate growth.
Precisely. It creates a much more positive and supportive environment for everyone.
This has been incredibly insightful. You've given me so much to think about in terms of how I approach my own learning and how I interact with others.
And remember, we're just scratching the surface here. There's so much more to explore in the world of mindsets.
You know, one thing that really stood out to me in Dweck's book was how a fixed mindset can actually hinder our ability to achieve success, even when we have natural talent.
That's a really important point. Dweck argues that people with a fixed mindset often shy away from challenges that might expose their weaknesses or threaten their talented label.
So they'd rather coast on their natural abilities than risk looking bad by trying something new or stretching themselves.
Exactly. And in the long run, that avoidance of challenges can lead to stagnation and ultimately a decline in performance.
It's like a plant that's not watered or given enough sunlight. It might sprout quickly at first, but without proper nourishment and care, it will eventually wither and die.
And what's fascinating is that Dweck found that even people with extraordinary natural abilities can be held back by a fixed mindset.
Really? Can you give an example?
Sure. Dweck studied gifted children in school settings, and she found that those who held a fixed mindset about intelligence often plateaued in their academic achievements.
So even though they were initially identified as gifted, their belief that intelligence is fixed actually prevented them from reaching their full potential?
Exactly. They became afraid of making mistakes,
Um,
of not living up to their smart label, so they avoided challenging courses or activities that might expose their perceived limitations.
It's almost tragic, isn't it? To have so much potential, but to be held back by a limiting belief system.
It is. But the good news is that it doesn't have to be that way. Dweck's research shows that even the most gifted individuals can thrive when they adopt a growth mindset.
So it's about seeing their abilities not as fixed traits, but as qualities that can be cultivated and expanded through effort, learning, and perseverance.
Precisely. And that shift in mindset can unlock a whole new level of achievement and fulfillment regardless of one's starting point.
This really highlights the importance of nurturing a growth mindset in all areas of our lives, from our personal pursuits to our relationships, our work, and even our parenting.
You know, speaking of parenting, Dweck devotes a whole chapter in her book to the role of mindset in raising children. She argues that one of the most important things parents can do is foster a growth mindset in their kids from an early age.
So instead of praising kids for being smart or talented, we should focus on praising their effort, their strategies, and their resilience.
Exactly. We want to encourage them to see challenges as opportunities for growth, not as threats to their self-worth. And we want to help them develop the skills and strategies they need to overcome those challenges and achieve their goals.
It's about teaching them that mistakes are not failures, but valuable learning experiences, and that their abilities are not fixed, but can be developed through dedication and hard work.
One of the things I found really helpful in Dweck's book was her discussion of how to talk to kids about their performance in school. She emphasizes the importance of focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
So instead of asking, did you get a good grade, we should ask, what did you learn from this assignment? What strategies did you use? What challenges did you face, and how did you overcome them?
Yes, those kinds of questions encourage kids to reflect on their learning process, identify areas for improvement, and develop a sense of agency over their own learning.
It's about shifting the focus from grades and external validation to intrinsic motivation and a love of learning for its own sake.
Exactly. And that shift in focus can have a profound impact on a child's academic journey and their overall approach to life.
It's not just about getting good grades. It's about developing a lifelong love of learning and a belief in their own ability to grow and achieve their goals.
And you know what's really interesting is that this approach to parenting doesn't just benefit children. It can also help parents develop a stronger growth mindset themselves.
Oh, how so?
Well, when we focus on praising our children's effort, strategies, and resilience, we're essentially modeling those same qualities for them. We're showing them that we value growth and learning, not just outcomes and accolades.
It's like we're all on this learning journey together, parents and children supporting each other, encouraging each other to embrace challenges and celebrate growth.
Exactly. And that creates a much more positive and supportive environment for everyone involved.
This has been an incredibly insightful conversation. It's amazing to think that something as seemingly simple as our mindset can have such a profound impact on our lives and the lives of our children.
It's a testament to the power of belief. Our beliefs shape our perceptions, our actions, and ultimately our outcomes.
So as we continue to explore the world of mindsets in the next part of our deep dive, I want to leave you with this question to ponder.
What steps can you take to foster a growth mindset in yourself and in those around you?
How can you shift your focus from judging yourself and others to embracing the learning process and celebrating growth? We'll explore these questions and more in the final part of our deep dive. Until then, keep those minds open and those learning gears turning.
Welcome back to our deep dive into mindset. I have to say, I'm already starting to see fixed mindset patterns everywhere. Like I've been wearing these tinted glasses and just now realizing it.
It is kind of like that. Once you start paying attention to it, you realize just how deeply ingrained these mindsets are in our culture, our language, even in our interactions.
So we've identified those fixed mindset patterns, and we're starting to challenge those negative thoughts. But how do we actually shift our mindset in those moments? What are some practical things we can do? One thing Dweck talks about is the power of the word yet.
Yet.
Yeah. So instead of saying, I can't do this, try it yet to the end. I can't do this yet.
Yeah.
It might seem small, but it really reframes the statement from one of limitation to one of possibility.
Yeah, I love that. It acknowledges where you are right now, but still holds space for growth and future potential.
Exactly. And then another thing you can try is shifting your focus from judging yourself to embracing the learning process. So instead of fixating on the outcome, ask yourself, what can I learn from this experience? What strategies worked? What could I do differently next time?
This reminds me of something you said earlier about Michael Jordan. I mean, he didn't just become a basketball legend overnight. He embraced those missed shots, he analyzed them, and used them to refine his skills.
Right. He understood that mastery isn't about avoiding mistakes. It's about learning from them. He viewed failure not as a setback, but as valuable data on his journey to excellence.
Okay. So how can we apply that to our own lives? Like, what if you're someone who really, really struggles with setbacks? You make a mistake at work and you just want to crawl under your desk and disappear.
That's where self-compassion comes in. So instead of beating yourself up over a mistake, try talking to yourself the way you would talk to a close friend who is going through the same thing. Offer yourself understanding and encouragement.
So be your own best friend.
Exactly. Because everyone makes mistakes. It's part of being human.
Right. And I think we often hold ourselves to these impossibly high standards, and then we just berate ourselves when we inevitably fall short.
And that kind of negative self-talk, it just reinforces a fixed mindset. It makes us afraid to take risks, to try new things, to put ourselves out there.
Okay, so what are some practical things we can do to cultivate self-compassion and build that resilience?
One practice that I found really helpful is mindfulness meditation. Even taking a few minutes each day to just observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment can create a sense of space. And it allows you to respond to challenges with more clarity and composure.
I've heard about mindfulness, but to be honest, I always thought it was kind of woo-woo.
There are many different approaches to mindfulness.
Yeah.
So you can find one that works for you.
Yeah.
It might be guided meditations, mindful breathing exercises, or even just taking a few moments to appreciate the beauty of nature.
I'll have to give it a try. This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I feel like I'm looking at the world through a whole new set of lenses.
That's great to hear. And remember, this is just the beginning of your journey with mindset. It's an ongoing process of awareness practice and self-discovery.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this. What's one small step you can take today to shift your mindset from fixed to growth? It might be reframing a negative thought, seeking out a new challenge, or simply acknowledging someone's effort instead of their talent. Every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to unlocking your full potential. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep those minds open to new possibilities.
Well said. It's been a pleasure diving into this with you. Until next time.